All right, what do you want to talk about today? Football? Go ahead. Fire away.
Initially, you told us not to worry about the depth chart too much.
Good for you.
Can
I'm
we
glad you're not worrying.
right now about a couple pieces?
Sure, I'll answer any questions I can about it.
Coleman said you want to get a look at him at safety.
Yeah.
And we wondered how real those #1 reps were at free safety. At this point, halfway through almost.
I think that's a fair question to ask. I think Nick Coleman is convinced us that he's there to stay.
And do you believe he's your best option?
Well, I think that's kind of I wouldn't put it that way, best option. We would certainly put somebody there and give him first team reps if we think he could help us win a championship. We wouldn't necessarily put somebody there if we're just trying to get out of the game. So our evaluation of Nick Coleman is, can he be a dynamic player at that position? We all know that he possesses the athletic ability. We wanted to see if he could translate the other skills at that safety position, i.e. tackling, picking up obviously the scheme in terms of how you play off the hash. And I would say that based upon what we've seen through 6-7 practices, he won't be moving to another position. For me to tell you right today, however, that he's our starter, he's our guy, we need more body of work, but he won't be moving anywhere else. He'll be a safety.
Why do you think maybe safety translates better for him in the corner? Because at one point, he looked like he was ascending.
I think, gaining the athleticism that he possesses at that position, somebody that really can track the ball, a guy that can play the middle of the field, that really can cover some ground and some space back there. If you look at our safeties, we've got some physical safeties certainly, but profiling somebody that has corner skills playing the safety position, you can imagine that he brings a different skill set to the position.
Players have always been really positive about the strength program. I was wondering if you ever happened to address with Matt or have any concerns about what happened at Oregon, if that was something that you addressed when you hired him before the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, so the culture that I create and charge our strength staff with is to build the traits that are necessary to be successful. And one of the most important traits that you want to build in your football team is the ability to fight through stress and fatigue. And you certainly can't fight through stress and fatigue if you're simply breaking players down. That's unacceptable in any program that I've been around. It's counterproductive. It doesn't serve a purpose to the end in mind, and that is what you want your players to be is, building a mental toughness so they can handle the stress and fatigue of the fourth quarter. And so Matt clearly comes from that same camp. That's why he was hired. And then his charge was to, build a positive environment where our players could grow in that regard. Grit, being able to fight through some fatigue and stress and create those environments, but to bring everybody along. It would be easy for Matt in the first couple of weeks to do 1,000,000 push-ups and sit-ups, and all those guys would be on the ground. That doesn't serve a purpose. There's no end to that. You don't gain any benefit there. So he's much more talented than doing something in that regard, and that's why we've made good progress. I don't think there's a fine line, to be quite honest with you. I think that's a real easy line to define when you can adapt to what the level of conditioning is to each player. I can tell you that we went out in the first week when we had our accountability runs, and it was pretty clear that not everybody was at the same level. And we had 15 drills. We had to cut it down to 7. So I think it's a fine line if you don't want to see it. But it's pretty clear that you want to build everybody's competency. And by building their competency at some level, you're going to get something back on the other end.
You mentioned P-Bud was something you really wanted to focus on. Have you seen that? Can you talk about that?
Well, we try to create competition in everything that we've been doing for the last, whatever it's been, January 18th. We're competing in the classroom, in the locker room, drill work, all the things that we're doing, we're competing on a day-to-day basis. Points are being accumulated every single day. Our players see the competition that's out there amongst their teams. We have 8 teams broken into by captains leading each group. So there's competition for not just sprinting and lifting, but everything that we do. Academics, discipline, community service, and so that competition is real every single day, as well as obviously then you get into practice and you want to see great competition as well. So I don't think you can just take 2 weeks and say, all right, we're going to compete for 2 weeks. I think you get to compete all year round, and we'll continue to do that all through the summer as well.
Have you changed your practice to maybe more competition, more individual one-on-one, more team that is?
This spring has been more about teaching from a defensive standpoint. We're going from scheme to fundamentals, right? So Mike Elko is about the fundamentals and teaching the fundamentals and all those pieces coming together at the end of the day, and you'll see his defense. So if you were to just sit there and watch his practice, you would not walk away with anything else but, man, this guy just teaches the fundamentals. And then when we come together, 11 on 11, 7 on 7, you want to see all those fundamentals come to fruition at the end of the day. So it's been about teaching the fundamentals. It's been about learning, right? We're not going to play a game on Saturday, so a lot of teaching. And then from an offensive standpoint, consistency and performance. It's not good enough to go out there one day and have the offense running well and then the next day not. So if you're looking at what the real points of emphasis are, yeah, we're competing, but that's been kind of the foundation of everything in the offseason. Offensively, looking for consistency and performance, and then defensively, the fundamentals.
There are a lot of positions where in years what you see is you alternate day by day with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Is there 1 or 2 spots where you feel the competition is, those 2 guys are head-to-head, real close, high production from both guys?
Yeah, I think, inside the defensive tackle position is a very fluid position right now, especially the 3 technique. I think that's very competitive. We're seeing a lot of, in and out right now. Bonner, Micah Treadway. I think you're seeing, in the defensive end position, Jay Hayes, Okora. Seeing a lot of competition between Coney, Martini, just to name a few. I think, safety position, Stud, and Jalen Elliott. So, there's a few positions right there where, very competitive. A lot of guys right now in and out of the rotation from a defensive standpoint. I think we've mentioned the offense, the right tackle position. The wide receiver position is really a very competitive situation at all positions, including, Miles Boykin is having a really good spring, tracking the ball very well, catching it consistently. I think the thing last year was about consistency for him. He's starting to show the consistency that will allow him. He's very sneaky, right? He eats up a lot of ground with those long strides, and before you know it, he's running past people. So, there's a big battle going on out there, what that rotation's going to look like. Durham Smythe is, as we've talked about, is in the best condition physically that he's ever been, mentally and physically. With him, Alizé Jones, Nick Wisher, you've got a great combination. So I probably could go on with 4 or 5. The running back situation. Yeah, excuse me?
I was going to bring up the Rover position.
Yeah, the Rover position as well. Drew Tranquil, Asmar Bilal, I think both of them are going to play. There's no question that both of them lend themselves to maybe different styles of offense that we may see. One's a little bit obviously bigger, but look, Drew Tranquil's not small. You could probably put him at will linebacker right now. I'm not saying or suggesting that we're doing that, so let's not let that be a headline. But making the analogy that certainly he's a big physical kid too, but Asmar brings us something a little bit different there.
Coach, with Josh Barajas, has he been picking up the fundamentals and the learning and all of that?
He got ill and had been out for 3 days, so he took a step back, but he's the good part about it is we're teaching fundamentals here, right? So it's going back to the basics and the fundamentals for Josh. He's a great kid. We love him. It's just, he got sick, he got ill. He was out, missed 3 practices. He's back in it. He's back engaged. So hopefully we get him rounding back into shape here in the next week or so.
How does Chase Claypool's technique and fundamentals catching up to his athleticism?
Better. Yeah, it's been a learning experience for him. We threw him right into the fire last year. And, he was swimming. He's just such a great kid. But there's definitely, and again, I think I would like to underline on the offensive side of the ball, this is really more about consistency of performance. We were up and down, right? You could see that by a bunch of points we put up one week and then we struggle to put up points the next week. So this is really about a consistency in performance from individuals across the board to collectively offensive structure, play calling, all of those things. So everybody's involved in it. But clearly he is definitely benefited from being here over the year and is more consistent.
You have potentially huge wide receivers with
Yes.
height. How does C.J. Sanders kind of fitting into that? We've only seen him working outside.
Well, him and Fink would be certainly the exception to the rule of the offensive receivers that we have. But they have a place in our offense, and they'll be used accordingly. I mean, the offensive structure is such that we can use those guys. They have a place. They can be effective players, and they will be. They'll be used accordingly. But, you could see where this offense, clearly is going. We've got depth at the tight end positions. We've got big-bodied wide receivers. We've got, a very physical offensive line, and we're very deep at the running back position. And you guys can kind of figure out where that kind of takes you.
Feel like right after last season, there were quite a few guys who started getting more vocal on social media, being really motivational about pushing forward to the next season. What are your thoughts on just some of your players using social media more as a motivational tool to kind of rally their teammates and just kind of just be motivating, I guess?
I've never really discouraged or encouraged social media as a forum of expression, as long as it's used in an appropriate manner. Look, they know that social media is going to only get them so far. The traits that they build on a day-to-day basis are really going to be the deciding factors on how successful we are. So that's a pastime, social media. It's a pleasant distraction, if you will. The real body of work, what they have to do on a day-to-day basis, is outside that. So as long as they're appropriate and for the most part representing us in a positive way, that's all I really care about relative to the social media piece.
Brian, I think going into spring, you mentioned they had a couple different defensive schemes to learn last year. You didn't want to give them too much. At this point, are you able to add some of the bells and whistles onto the defensive scheme? And also, when Winbush and Book and those guys are facing it, are you testing them with the bells and whistles, or are they seeing a more basic vanilla version?
No, they're getting plenty. Today we had 3rd down, 2-point plays, 4th down situations. They saw 3 down. They saw fire zones. They saw pressures. They saw swipe coverages. They saw virtually everything that they would see in a game situation. So they've experienced everything that they may see going against a particular opponent during the week. So you know, our installation from a defensive standpoint has covered virtually everything that they would see. Pressure fronts, 3 down. You know, we'll get into 2-man tomorrow. We haven't seen that. We've seen some, you know, our basic, you know, for lack of a better term, you know, our, you know, zone coverage down in the red zone. And they've got to defeat that, which is a bracket coverage. So they've seen them all and been able to learn off of that as well.
If you flip the perspective then, looking at it from a defensive standpoint, have you seen enough of this scheme, enough of your players learning it, that you can measure whether you feel like they're better than last year, they're better defense?
Oh, we'll be a better defense because, number one, we'll be our run support will be so much better. We'll cup the ball better. We'll be better at the fundamentals. And we know that as we went through the season, as we became more fundamentally sound, we saw how our defense improved each and every week. But we'll be better there. We'll be better at taking away the football because it's an emphasis every single day. I'll tell you, last year before we went to team, and this is not better or worse, but this is just a different emphasis. Before we went to team, we would defensively spend 5 minutes on our pressures. We spent 5 minutes today before we went to team on stripping the football and getting the football out. I mean, so it's just a different mentality in terms of you teaching the fundamentals. Today we spent 25 minutes in different segments during the practice on how to get the ball out, how to get the ball out in different fashions, how to stay on your feet and not jump, you know, and you know, getting in the face of the quarterback and making short windows on 3rd and 4 to 6, so it's a difficult throw. So fundamentally, we'll be better. Fundamentally, from a run support standpoint, all of those areas, not giving up the big play. How that translates, your players still have to make plays. But I know going into the season, we'll be smarter and we'll be fundamentally sound. And I think if we walk away from every game and go, dang, that's a smart defense, and that's fundamentally sound. With the players that we have, I got to envision that that's probably going to be pretty good.
Along those same lines, how hard the defense is going to be Coach Oakland, our best to hire. Defensive line is going to be asked to do a lot more from a production disruption standpoint. Long way to go before Temple, but you know, coming from January, you've got a lot of kids. Coaches talk about they like the talent, but there's not a lot of proven production at that spot. Where have they come? Where are they right now, starting from January? And what are the kind of next things you need to see from that group that you know you're kind of on the way to get?
Well, what we're getting right now is you know, the younger players starting to show themselves. Okora, you're starting to see Khalid Kareem. You're starting to see Micah Treadway. You're starting to see some of those younger players. Dalen Hayes. You know, we're cross-training Jameer Jones inside and on the edge and 3rd down. We're seeing some young athletic players that are, you know, adding to our defense. And then the fundamentals that I talked to in terms of we had a couple of knock balls down on 3rd and 4 to 6 today because they're being talked about what's going to happen on 3rd and 4 to 6. Probably quick game. Don't need to rush the quarterback. You need to get your hands up, right? And then there was sprint out. We're not jumping and losing contain, but we're staying on our feet. So it's the combination of fundamentals and knowing down and distance and getting some of those young athletic players in a position where they can impact. And what I like about Mike is he's putting guys in a position when they're needed. And it might be specific to a particular down and distance in front and not having to train them in everything that we do. Yeah, they had an exam today. He had an exam.
I know last week we talked about Nick Watkins and how to stay comfortable. And what, though, is your plan, I guess, for him, and I guess specifically Sean Crawford, you know, easing him back, I guess, especially, I don't know, maybe not going too hard and getting excited and hopefully not getting injured?
Well, you know, as far as injuries, we integrate them back in using both the art and the science, right? So Rob does a great job. Rob Hunt, you know, who directs our medical care. So that integration comes from Rob and then our strength team, and then we're monitoring that through GPS to make sure that we're doing the right things, integrating them. Once they're integrated, it's full go. We can't, in our minds, think about, oh, you know, we got to be careful here. So once they're integrated properly, and that integration, as you mentioned, might be about shortened reps throughout that practice session, because we don't wait until they're 100% every, you know, they can take every rep before we bring them back in. So that kind of integration takes place through Rob Hunt, our strength and conditioning. We use a little bit of science, and then we bring them back in. And then once they're ready to go, Nick Watkins, for example, we don't even think about his injury. We don't even, that doesn't even come in our approach. He's going to go. But we'll do that now with Sean as we're moving through the process. He's on a GPS, and he has a target number. And that number, when he gets to it, I'll monitor it during the practice. I'll let Mike Elko know and Todd Light say, hey, his number today is 375. When he gets intensity rep at 375 on his GPS, he's done. So right now he's at 200. So if you want him to get more reps during the practice, you got to monitor him. He can't get all these reps at this time. So if you want him to get to team time, you got to be careful with him to get him to 375. So that's kind of how we do it.
Does he get frustrated, like, oh, I want to go more, but he understands how to
Yeah, unfortunately, you have a kid here who's been injured twice. So he knows his body probably a little bit better than maybe somebody that's dealing with an injury for the first time. Ade, for example, Ade, who's back from his injury already, practiced full go today. You know, he was a little bit hesitant to get out there, you know, after his first couple of days. We had to kind of coax him a little bit. You're okay, you can go. So it just depends. Sean obviously has been through it. You know, he's gonna know his body. We're gonna listen to him a lot more. And when he feels really good and feels like he can drive, we're gonna let him go.
Such a big season last year, going from freshman to sophomore year, almost comparable to what go forward here. Do you see him as maybe being that one receiver and ratcheting it up even more, or do you see better balance?
I see better balance. I really do. I think we're going to have some guys that are going to come up to his level that he was at last year, that will give the quarterback and the offense a little bit more balance than we had last year. You know, EQ's going to be a better player. He's working on some of the weaknesses that he has, which limit him in certain areas, and he's diligently working on those. But I think in answering the question, that you're going to see a better supporting cast across the board, which is going to give us much more balance. And more importantly, it's going to give us much more consistency from an offensive standpoint.
Thank you, guys.
Good?